Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you again as today we look at Psalm 10. Psalm 10. So I'm going to read it for you. It's reasonably short and it's a great read. Why, O Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In arrogance, the wicked hotly pursue the poor. Let them be caught in the schemes that they have devised. For the wicked boasts of the desires of his soul, and the one greedy for gain curses and renounces the Lord. In the pride of his face, the wicked does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God. His ways prosper at all times. Your judgments are on high out of his sight. As for all his foes, he puffs at them. He says in his heart, I shall not be moved. Throughout all generations, I shall not meet adversity. His mouth is filled with cursing and deceit and oppression. Under his tongue are mischief and iniquity. He sits in ambush in the villages, in hiding places he murders the innocent. His eyes stealthily watch for the helpless. He lurks in ambush like a lion in his thicket. He lurks that he may seize the poor. He seizes the poor when he draws him into his net. The helpless are crushed, sink down, and fall by his might. He says in his heart, God has forgotten. He has hidden his face. He will never see it. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up your hand. Forget not the afflicted. Why does the wicked renounce God and say in his heart, you will not call to account? But you do see, for you note mischief and vexation, that you may take it into your hands. To you the helpless commits himself. You have been the helper of the fatherless. Break the arm of the wicked and evildoer. Call his wickedness to account till you find none. The Lord is king forever and ever. Of nations, the nations perish from this his land. O Lord, you hear the desire of the afflicted. You will strengthen their heart. You will incline your ear to do justice to the fatherless and the oppressed, so that man who is of the earth may strike terror no more. All right, this is a great psalm. This is a great psalm, a psalm of our times, and a psalm of lament. And it's very nicely split into three parts for us. Nicely split into three parts. But just to get you thinking about something, as I read it, I was led to think of the hymn or song In Christ Alone, especially the lines in the last verse. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand. And I know you know that song so well. I just want you to mull over those two lines of that song as we read this psalm, this great psalm of lament for the times in which David found himself. So verses 1 to 11 are essentially David's observation of what is going on around him. And basically, the wicked are getting away with murder, with stealing from the poor, with subjugating the poor, with exploiting the poor, with getting away with their wicked ways. Simply, their plans are succeeding. And the writer begins by saying in verse 1, why, O Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? It's important to say that this is not a statement or a question originating in the doubt of the writer. It is simply a question of lament coming from his heart. So coming from his heart. Why do you stand far away? In other words, how can you bear to be standing far off and tolerate what's going on? That's the question, really. Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? It's not so much that he believes God is in hiding, but he wonders how God can stand so far off and not be interested or not appear interested in what is going on. That is a question that is still rooted in the writer's faith, not in doubt, and we see that come to fruition at the end of the psalm. So we'll keep going. So verses 1 to 11 are about the times in which he finds himself, and he's lamenting how wicked people are generally succeeding. Why do bad people get away with it? That kind of question that we might ask in our world today. So then, if that's the lament, then what is the response? Well, the response of faithful people is to pray. So you go to verse 12, and verses 12 to 15 are the prayers of faithful people. The prayers of faithful people. And there is a call on the Lord in verse 12, arise, O Lord, O God, lift up your hand, forget not the afflicted. It's beautiful. The lament is followed by prayer, and it's a fairly fervent prayer, which acknowledges that really God does see what goes on, and there is no hiding from God. And he especially calls upon God to deal with those who would renounce the very existence of the Lord our God. And that prayer beautifully follows the lament. And then we get to the final part of the psalm, which is the confidence and the faithfulness of the writer, of David, which also confirms our understanding that the questions right at the start were never asked from a position of doubt. This is something that he has total confidence in the Lord our God. So he begins in verse 16 to 18 is the confidence of God coming out, confidence in God coming out of David. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations perish from his land. O Lord, you hear the desire of the afflicted. You will strengthen our heart. You will incline your ear to do justice to the fatherless and the oppressed, so that man who is of the earth may strike terror no more. You do hear us. You will answer us. I know that despite my lamenting, I know and have confidence in what you, the Lord our God, will do. And the line that reminded me of the Getty Townend song, In Christ Alone, comes right at the end, so that man who is of the earth may strike terror no more. In other words, no power of hell, no scheme of man will ever pluck me from his hand. Amen.